The revelation came during what humans called a scientific symposium, though Zexthera would later realize it was actually a demonstration of something far more significant than academic knowledge sharing. The event brought together researchers from across human space to discuss what they termed impossible problems. Challenges that had resisted solution despite decades or even centuries of effort. Zexthera attended expecting to observe typical knowledge transfer patterns where senior experts shared discoveries with junior colleagues. Instead, she witnessed something that would fundamentally change her understanding of intelligence itself. The first presentation addressed humanity's attempts to develop faster-than-light communication, a technology that the Coalition had been using for millennia. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a renowned human physicist, spent an hour explaining why every theoretical approach had failed to produce practical results. According to her analysis, humans lacked the mathematical frameworks necessary to solve the underlying quantum field equations. In any other species, this presentation would have ended with respectful questions from the audience, and perhaps suggestions for future research directions. Instead, what followed challenged every assumption Zexthera held about how knowledge worked. A graduate student in the back row raised her hand. Dr. Walsh, what if we're approaching this from the wrong direction? Instead of trying to transmit information faster than light, what if we found a way to make the information exist in multiple places simultaneously? The suggestion should have been dismissed as naive speculation from someone lacking the expertise to understand the problem's complexity. Instead, Dr. Walsh paused thoughtfully. Can you elaborate on that concept? The student, clearly nervous about challenging a senior researcher, stood slowly. I was reading about quantum entanglement in biological systems, and I noticed that some organisms seem to process information through distributed networks rather than centralized computing. What if consciousness itself is a form of quantum communication that we don't understand yet? Rather than politely dismissing this interdisciplinary tangent, Dr. Walsh began asking detailed questions. Within minutes, she was sketching equations on a display screen, incorporating concepts from biology, psychology, and quantum physics. Other researchers throughout the auditorium began contributing ideas, building on the student's initial insight. Zexthera watched in amazement as the formal structure of the symposium dissolved into something resembling controlled chaos. Experts from different fields began collaborating on theoretical frameworks that none of them could have developed individually. The original presentation became a starting point for real-time collective problem-solving that involved hundreds of participants. Most remarkably, the breakthrough insight came not from Dr. Walsh or any other recognized expert, but from the synthesis of ideas contributed by dozens of researchers working together. The solution emerged from their collaborative process rather than from any individual's brilliance. This pattern repeated throughout the symposium. Established experts presented problems, but solutions emerged from collective intelligence that incorporated perspectives from multiple disciplines and experience levels. Senior researchers served as facilitators and knowledge integrators rather than as the primary source of new insights. During a break between sessions, Zexthera approached Dr. Walsh to discuss what she had observed. In most civilizations, scientific advancement is driven by exceptional individuals who develop new theories and discoveries. Human science seems to operate on entirely different principles. Dr. Walsh smiled with the particular expression humans used when discussing concepts they found self-evident but recognized others might find surprising. Individual genius certainly exists, but our biggest breakthroughs come from collective intelligence. Any problem complex enough to challenge human civilization requires more knowledge and creativity than any single person can possess. We've learned to think together. But how do you maintain quality control? Zexthera asked. When everyone contributes ideas, how do you distinguish between valid insights and mere speculation? That's exactly why the process works, Dr. Walsh replied. When an idea comes from collective evaluation, it's been tested against dozens of different perspectives and knowledge bases before we even begin formal experimentation. Bad ideas get filtered out naturally because they can't survive scrutiny from multiple experts. Good ideas get strengthened because they incorporate insights that the original thinker might have missed. This explanation illuminated something that had puzzled Zexthera throughout her evaluation of human society. She had been searching for the source of human leadership and intelligence, assuming it must reside in particular individuals or institutions. Instead, she was discovering that human capability emerged from the interactions between individuals, rather than from any single source. That evening, Ambassador Sarah Chen invited Zex Thera to dinner with her family, offering a glimpse into human social structures at their most basic level. Zex Thera accepted, hoping to understand how their collaborative patterns manifested in intimate relationships. The Chen family included 3 generations living in a modest home that reflected their middle-class economic status. Sarah's elderly parents, her spouse, her 2 adolescent children, and her brother's family created a multi-generational group that should have operated according to clear age and authority hierarchies. Instead, Zex Thera observed the same distributed leadership patterns she had noticed throughout human society. Major decisions involved input from all family members, with different individuals taking the lead based on their expertise and the nature of the decision. Sarah's father guided discussions about financial planning, drawing on decades of experience. Her teenage daughter led conversations about educational choices, since she had the most current knowledge about academic opportunities. Her spouse took the lead on household logistics, while her mother facilitated discussions about relationship challenges. Most significantly, even the youngest family members contributed meaningful insights that influenced family decisions. When they discussed whether to relocate for Sarah's diplomatic career, her 8-year-old nephew pointed out practical considerations that the adults had overlooked. Rather than dismissing his input as childish, the family carefully evaluated his observations and incorporated them into their planning process. How do you prevent chaos when everyone has input into important decisions? Zex Thera asked during the meal. Sarah's mother, Elena, answered thoughtfully. It's not chaos if everyone understands that the goal is making the best decision for the family, rather than getting their own way. We've learned to trust that good ideas can come from anyone, regardless of age or formal authority. This comment triggered a profound realization for Zex Thera. Throughout her evaluation of human society, she had been assuming that their collaborative approaches represented inefficient compromises forced by their primitive technology and social structures. She now understood that collaboration wasn't a limitation they were trying to overcome. It was their greatest strength. Humans had discovered something that no other coalition species had achieved: how to amplify individual intelligence through collective thinking. Their distributed leadership networks weren't signs of organizational confusion, but sophisticated tools for solving problems too complex for any individual to understand completely. The next morning brought the final revelation that completed Zex Thera's understanding. Ambassador Chen had arranged a demonstration of human crisis management capabilities using a simulated galactic emergency. The scenario involved a collision between a coalition transport ship and a human vessel near Earth, requiring rapid coordination between human authorities and the Galactic Emergency Response System. Zex Thera expected to observe a typical bureaucratic response where human officials would follow predetermined protocols while waiting for guidance from more advanced coalition representatives. Instead, she witnessed something that would fundamentally change how the coalition understood the nature of intelligence itself. As soon as the emergency scenario began, human response teams immediately began operating at multiple levels simultaneously. Official emergency managers activated formal protocols, while unofficial networks throughout human society began organizing support resources. Scientists started analyzing the technical challenges, while community leaders prepared to handle displaced populations. Military units readied rescue operations, while business leaders organized material support. Most remarkably, these parallel response efforts weren't competing with each other or duplicating functions. Instead, they formed a seamless collaborative network that addressed every aspect of the crisis simultaneously. Information flowed freely between all levels of the response, creating a real-time collective intelligence that could adapt instantly to changing circumstances. When coalition emergency responders arrived expecting to take charge of the situation, they found that humans had already implemented solutions more comprehensive and effective than anything in standard galactic protocols. The human response hadn't just followed established procedures. It had generated innovative approaches, specifically tailored to the unique challenges of the situation. The Coalition Emergency Coordinator, a Kevhari officer trained in managing multi-species crises, admitted to Zex Thera afterward that human emergency management capabilities exceeded those of civilizations with technology centuries more advanced. "They don't just respond to emergencies," he said with obvious admiration. "They think their way through them." That evening, as Zexthara prepared her final evaluation report, she found herself facing an unprecedented challenge. The standard coalition assessment categories didn't include frameworks for evaluating distributed intelligence or collaborative leadership. Human civilization was simultaneously more primitive and more advanced than anything in the galactic database. She decided to request a direct communication with the Coalition Council rather than submitting a standard written report. This situation required explanation that couldn't be captured in typical bureaucratic language. When the connection was established, Zexthara addressed the assembled representatives of 47 galactic civilizations. "Honored council members, I must report that human civilization cannot be evaluated using standard assessment protocols. They have developed capabilities that don't fit into our existing categories." The council chairman, a Zephyrian whose species had achieved faster than light travel before humans had developed agriculture, responded with mild interest. "Please explain this assessment, Ambassador. Do they possess hidden technologies that weren't apparent in preliminary surveys?" "No, Chairman," Zexthara replied carefully. "Their technology remains primitive by our standards. However, they have developed something that may be more significant than advanced technology. They have learned to think collectively." The council chamber fell silent as representatives struggled to understand what she was suggesting. Finally, the ethereal delegate spoke with the harmonic tones that marked her species as the coalition's most advanced philosophers. "Ambassador, are you suggesting that humans have achieved hive consciousness? Several species have developed various forms of collective awareness." Unquote. "Not hive consciousness," Zexthara explained. "They maintain complete individual autonomy while simultaneously participating in distributed decision-making networks. They can think together without losing the ability to think independently. Each human brain remains separate, but they've learned to connect their cognitive capabilities in ways that amplify intelligence, rather than simply aggregating it." The implications began to sink in, as council members considered what this might mean for galactic civilization. If humans could maintain their collaborative approaches while gaining access to coalition technology, they would become a formidable force in galactic affairs. More significantly, they might offer solutions to problems that had challenged the coalition for centuries. The chairman finally spoke again, his voice carrying the weight of historic decision-making. "Ambassador Zexthara, what is your recommendation regarding human membership in the coalition?" Zexthara had spent her entire career making straightforward recommendations based on objective criteria. This time, she found herself making a judgment that would affect the future of both human and galactic civilization. "Honored Chairman, I recommend immediate full membership rather than the usual associate status. However, I also recommend that the coalition prepare for fundamental changes in how we approach galactic governance. Humans won't simply adapt to our existing structures. They're going to transform them." "And is such transformation desirable?" asked the ethereal delegate. Zexthara considered everything she had learned about human society: their distributed leadership, their collaborative problem-solving, their ability to generate collective intelligence that exceeded the sum of individual capabilities. She thought about the scientific symposium where breakthrough insights emerged from group thinking rather than individual genius. She remembered the emergency response that had impressed even advanced coalition specialists. "Honored delegates," she said finally, "I believe humans may possess the key to challenges that our civilization has been unable to solve. Their collaborative approaches to impossible problems could revolutionize everything from scientific research to interspecies diplomacy. The question isn't whether they're ready to join us. It's whether we're ready to learn from them." As the council began deliberating humanity's membership application, Zexthara realized that her mission had revealed something far more significant than whether one primitive species was ready for galactic citizenship. She had discovered that the most advanced form of intelligence might not reside in individual brilliance or sophisticated technology, but in the ability to think together while remaining individually free. The back row secret hadn't been a hidden human weakness or a primitive social structure that needed to be overcome. It was humanity's greatest strength, the understanding that true intelligence emerged not from the smartest individual in the room, but from the collective wisdom that arose when everyone was empowered to contribute their unique perspective to shared challenges. For the first time in her diplomatic career, Zexthera found herself wondering whether the Coalition had as much to offer humanity as humanity had to offer the Coalition. The species she had been sent to evaluate as potential junior members might instead become their teachers in the most important lesson of all: how to think together without losing the ability to think freely.